You get to figure out what that is. You get to provide the value, and I say start with what you want. If you want to charge clients $10,000 a year, go for it. See what the value, what the market will bear for that, and you can adjust up or down based on the thing that you want to do. You get to choose.
How much is my business really worth? What is my labor worth? And how do I build wealth without tying my entire identity to those numbers?
Welcome to Living Not So Fabulously, where we talk about money, meaning, and your future. Today's guest, Brian Thompson, is a tax attorney turned financial advisor who helps minority families and first-gen founders answer the questions no one's prepared for them. Brian's specialty is helping mission-driven entrepreneurs protect what matters most, price themselves with confidence, and define a legacy of their own, not the markets.
Welcome to the show, Brian.
John, David, thanks for having me. I'm always glad to talk with you both.
Of course, likewise. So let's dive into it. We have a lot we want to cover today. Let's just start off. What's the simplest way for a founder to figure out what they and their business are worth?
Well, I think it starts from reverse engineering what you want. I always start with the why and making sure that you understand what your mission, vision, and values are. And then thinking about, well, what do I want this business to do for me? To me, the business is there to help support your good life in addition to having the impact that you want. So you have to figure out what it is that you want and then back end things from there, saying, all right, so I know that I want to make $150,000 a year. I want to work 20 hours a week, and being able to then price what your services or your product based on that information.
Gotcha. That sounds pretty sweet.
$50,000 a year.
Awesome, right?
20 hours a week.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, to what extent do you think about intellectual property, your client base, sort of, I guess, maybe from a sort of a business valuation perspective, what should be considered?
Well, at the beginning, you need to consider that this is a business as a separate asset, right? It's not just you. Even if you're just a part of a service business, you need to create some sort of company that can rely on its own without you. And that means you need to have systems, processes for marketing, making sure that you have intellectual property or capital that you can then sell. But keeping in mind that this is an asset. I feel like there are a lot of people who get into business and entrepreneurship thinking that it's just this thing that they do and maybe not even thinking about it as a business or an asset, but also realizing that this is something that one day you can sell, and you can sell for a lot of money if you set it up correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find that entrepreneurs tend to over or underestimate their value? And if so, what areas do they have those struggles in pricing at?
I've yet to meet an entrepreneur who overestimates their value. Everybody underestimates what they're worth, what they should charge people. It is the most common question that I hear when people come to me is that they're not charging enough. And they're not charging enough because they're basing it on the time that they're spending with certain people or the amount of work that they're putting in, not the value that they bring. So what I try to do is make sure that they switch the frame of their mindset to say, what value am I providing to this client or to this company? And making sure that they then price accordingly to the value rather than the amount of effort that they're putting in, their knowledge that they're bringing. I think that mind shift helps people understand that they're way more valuable than they think they are. And one other tip that I've often said to people is figure out what you want to price or charge people and then add 25% to that, because you're always going to underprice. And it's just a common thing. We all have imposter syndrome. So we need to have these little mindset shifts to help make sure that we are getting the value out of the business that we want and then also charging what we're worth.
Do you maybe mind sharing for either a new entrepreneur who's in a space that doesn't have kind of a standard, like with financial advisors, we know that there's some standards of how they might price their services. But let's say you are providing something that is relatively new to the market. How do you estimate that value when people are like, I don't necessarily know what content, I don't have comparisons. How do I find them myself?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. If you don't know, there's no context, you get to figure out what that is. You get to provide the value. And I say, start with what you want. If you want to charge clients $10,000 a year, go for it. See what the market will bear for that. And you can adjust up or down based on the thing that you want to do. You get to choose. I always tell my entrepreneurs, you get to build whatever you want. So these concepts of it has to be a certain price or it has because of the markets or because of who I serve, get all that out of your mind. You get to create what you want and you get to charge whatever you want. And my guess is you will find that the people will pay what you want them to pay. It's just making sure that you're not shortchanging yourself and shortchanging your value.
Yeah, so if you're just tuning in, this is Living Not So Fabulously, where we unpack the real price of money, meaning, and the legacy that you're building. We're speaking with financial advisor Brian Thompson, who helps founders get paid. So I sort of want to piggyback off of what you just said right there. I think this is a struggle that I think a lot of W-2 employees turned entrepreneurs have in terms, especially with figuring out what they're worth. Because even if you're getting paid salary, you kind of know in your head like what your hourly rate is when you're a W-2 employee, and then you start your own business. You're trying to figure out what your products and services and your time are worth. And I think it's a very challenging discussion to have. For example, we do a lot of brand partnerships, and brands will reach out to us to do public speaking, to do campaigns and whatnot. But like in particular for public speaking, I think very often they think that they're just hiring us for that hour to two that we're on stage. And so they're looking for a rate that's like what's commensurate with an hour or two of your time on that stage, not taking into account all of the time, experience we put into it, education, our background, how many iterations of that talk that we've done. How do you marry the two? How do you message that to the brands or the people who are hiring you, but also price yourself appropriately? So you don't price yourself out of the market, but also that you make the return that you need to keep your doors open.
Mm-hmm. I think it's exactly how you framed it, right? It's not just the time that I'm spending with you. And this is what I was talking about before. It's time versus value. It's value that you're providing to the company. It's value that you're providing to the audience that is hearing your message. And being able to frame it around, it's not just time. It's the message I'm providing, how good I am at this, how long I've been doing this. The longer you do it, something, the better you're going to get at something. So being able to frame it to those partnerships around saying, this is the value that I'm bringing to you. And this is the value that I can create to you. Everyone wants to know what's in it for them, right? And that's really the crux of any sort of agreement. And so if you can express the value and the importance of what you bring and what you're bringing to the partnership, then you can price appropriately there without having to really shortchange yourself.
Yeah. So what I think I'm hearing from you is when you're an entrepreneur, you got to be good at sales. You got to be good at your messaging. You have to know what your talking points are. You have to have your elevator pitch down. Because it's, especially when you're an entrepreneur, it's ABC, always be selling, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people who sort of fall into entrepreneurship don't realize is that there is a marketing piece to this. There is a selling piece to this because you could have the best product or service in the world, but if people don't know about it, it's going to be useless, right? And you still want to have impact. You still want to make sure that you are doing the thing that you do best. But it is a business and you have to know your brand. You have to know who you're serving. You have to know how to express it to them. And I think the more conversations that you have, this is why I tell people, like, you just got to practice. You just got to do it. You got to talk to as many people. You have to have 100 conversations right at the beginning to sort of refine how you explain to people what you do, who you serve, and why you do it. And the more conversations that you have, the better that you'll get at making sure that you are expressing yourself in a way that you want to express yourself, and then also being able to really express your value to the people that you're selling to.
Yeah. I'm curious, what suggestions do you have for folks who aren't necessarily salespeople? They're not necessarily comfortable with those conversations. But if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be. How can they learn and how can they practice without having their practice being with prospective clients that they end up losing because they didn't do it right?
I don't know that there's a way around that, right? I feel like you have to have 100 conversations. This theme around 100 conversations is important because, again, the more that you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And the first 100 conversations you're probably going to have with friends or family. They're going to be people that you know. And the more that you get out of your network, the better that you're going to get at really being able to talk to people who don't know you, who aren't going to really boost your ego because they don't know you, so they don't really care about that. Having those 100 conversations, I think, is super important. And then you're going to mess up. You're going to fail. And going in with that mindset of you're going to say something incorrectly, you're going to have to build, measure, learn every time that you do this. I know that a lot of entrepreneurs come in with this mindset of everything has to be perfect. That's not how business works. You have to be able to really practice and iterate as you go along, because something is going to go wrong all the time, no matter how long you've been in business. So my approach is just keep practicing, keep building, measure, and learn, and keep practicing and trying to do the best that you can with the information that you have, and continue to get a little bit better each day.
Yeah, I think what you said there in terms of measuring is really key. I think that's also one of the things that people struggle with, especially, if you're like a creative, like you create stuff, you're an artist of some sort, or you're creating content or whatever. Measuring seems very mathy, and it may, for a lot of people, seems it's the other side of their brain that they're not necessarily used to working with. But it's kind of,
Mm.
I mean, I think to your point, it's almost impossible to figure out how to learn from what you've done if you're not actually measuring and tracking. And I think, unfortunately, for a lot of people, they realize, well, that didn't work, and then they're just upset about it and frustrated with it. They haven't figured out, okay, well, how do I turn this turn this mistake into a learning opportunity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you hit it right on the head, right? You have to have some sort of metric, and clarity is key in all of this. You need to know what direction you're going. This is why we say we always start with mission, vision, and values. What are you trying to build? What impact are you trying to make? And then how do we measure you getting from where you are now to where you want to be? Right? There's always a distance. And we, in my discovery process with clients, we talk about mission, vision, value, where you are, getting organized, and then your vision, where you want to be. And then the third thing is how to get from one step to the other. And we give you pillars or pinpoints of saying, all right, so I've achieved this, what's next? I've achieved this, and what's next? But you need to have a direction, and you need to measure. You need to have some sort of clarity. And it's not just money, right? Everybody thinks about business and measuring your profit and loss or your cash flow. That's one important part of it, but your business is also something that you want to have impact, or you want to work 20 hours a week. Being able to have pinpoints for all of those things is important to you, not just financial metrics.
Yeah, absolutely. And we definitely want to dive into that, but hold that thought. We'll be right back after this quick break. Welcome back to Living Not So Fabulously. We're talking with financial advisor Brian Thompson, who guides founders to valuing their work without letting their valuation define who they are. So we wanted to kind of dive into that, a little bit of what you just said there before the break. How do you help mission-driven or LGBTQ plus founders balance the impact that they're having on their community, their culture, society, with sober, realistic valuations? We talked a little bit about how you figure out what your valuation is. How do you align that with your achieving your mission of having that impact on the community?
Yeah, I heard you say sober realistic. I tend not to be sober realistic. I say, what are we building? You get to build whatever you want. What does that look like? I was talking with somebody a little bit earlier today. I said, give me a Thrive number, not a number that you feel like is realistic or you feel like is what people should be making in your type of position. I said, tell me what you want. And this is where I got the 150,000 number. She's like, oh, I want to make $150,000. I want to work 20 hours a week. I want 8 weeks off a year. It's like, good. Tell me everything, right? You may not get it, but you actually may, right? And so I say, don't be realistic. Know the impact that you want to have. I want to speak to 1,000 people, right? Every week, whatever it is, let your mind run free. And this is a part of the visioning process that we have. If once you had this vision and this direction that you want to go in, you just take the next right step, but you know what you're working towards. And it doesn't have to be realistic or sobering. It can be whatever you want. You can build whatever you want. This is the thing that I continue to say over and over to my clients, and nobody believes me at the start. But eventually it starts to click. I don't have to do this thing this certain way. I don't have to be a certain type of person. I don't have to serve a certain segment of people. I can build whatever I want. And then once you're feeling aligned in that, the thing that you're building gets this momentum that I've never ever seen before, and will then build a company that is going to be extremely valuable because you are locked in to the impact that you want to have and the money that you're making and the structure and process around building a business in that way.
Yeah, I am laughing here as you're saying that because when we started our businesses, we both left W-2s. We were in those W-2s for more years than I care to count. And one of the things I realized, like after 3 or 4 years of running our own businesses, was we don't have to work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. We can create our own hours. Then they can be longer, they can be shorter, they can be on Saturday or Sunday. And so we shift our schedule. So we actually sometimes work on weekends because it's easier to do your grocery shopping on a Tuesday or Wednesday when everybody else is at work. But that took a
Right.
while for us to get there.
Yeah.
No, I've realized the same thing. I love working out and I want to be at the gym between 1 and 3 every day. It's like, well, clients won't do that. Clients won't accept that. They want to meet with me. Nope.
Yeah.
I can just set my own schedule. And eventually, if you feel like people work around you, and if people can't work around you, they're not the right clients for you, right? You get to build whatever you want. So run wild. Don't be realistic, I say.
I think what you just said there, though, is a very, very challenging lesson for people to learn.
Mhm.
People who aren't the right fit for you. You kind of, when you go into business, you kind of, and we know this from some of the entrepreneurs that we've worked with, it's hard for them to say who their target audience is because so often they come to the table, they're like, well, everybody needs my product. Well, yeah, maybe, but not everybody's going to connect with you. Not everybody's going to like your product or service the way you've created it or you deliver it. You have to, and I think for a lot of people who are content creators, virtual content creators like we are, we had this challenge with our email list, right? When, 20 people unsubscribed from our email list today. I'm so disappointed about that. But actually that helps save you money and then it helps open you up to the people who might buy from
Yeah.
you through your email list. And the same thing with social media followers, right? You say something online and you lose 1,000 followers and it's like a gut wrench. But clearly those people are saying we're not the right fit. And you kind of have to have that constitution about yourself to say, that's fine. I'm still going to find the people who are going to buy my product and service from me.
Yep. My favorite line is, "I'm not for everyone." And if you embrace it, you're not for everyone. You're not going to be able to sell everyone. And I feel like, and especially in the LGBTQ community, we sort of understand this already, that people just aren't going to like us because of who we are. And if we internalize that and say, that's okay, I'm not for everyone, and being able to really hone in on who you are, what you serve. This is again going back to the foundation principles of knowing your mission, vision, and values. That helps center you. That helps anchor you in who you are and what you do, and you don't get then sidelined by those situations where people are dropping off your email list because those aren't the right people for you. And you can't serve everyone, nor would you want to, right? You don't want to serve everyone. You want to make sure that you are aligned and really in tune and in flow with what you're doing. And I feel like the best way to do that is get centered in yourself and say, I'm not for everyone.
Yeah, I think that, Brian, I think that's a hard lesson for folks who come from minority communities. I mean, specifically here, we're talking about the LGBT community, that a lot of us grew up in situations where we didn't feel like, we felt like people were against us, right? So when we were constantly craving, trying to get that friendship, trying to get that attention, we want to be the cool kid, but we never were. And we carry that into a little bit later into our lives, but we're desperately trying to please everyone. And one of the easiest ways to please everyone, it seems to be in the world, is to have a lot of money. So oftentimes we tie our self-worth, the value that we have, to the amount of money that we are making or the amount of money our business is making. How do you help people kind of pull that apart? Your self-worth and your business worth, or your business, how much money your business is making, are not the same thing. Because I think even if you're not in the LGBT community, a lot of people push those two things together. I think that's why we had the whole hustle culture movement. Was, you're not doing enough, so you must not be the right kind of person. You need to hustle more.
I love that reflection, and it really resonates, right? I understand, as a person who is, number one, a person of color and also in the LGBTQ community, I know what it's like to want that acceptance, to want people to like me, to want to please everyone. And so the thing that I've had to learn myself is to say, and I literally have a mantra where I would say to myself in the mirror, I'm valuable as I am. I'm valuable just as I am. I don't need to sell a certain thing. I don't need to do a certain thing. Brian is valuable and lovable as he is. And that has taken me a long time to internalize, especially in this business of appearing in front of other people and talking to people and knowing that people aren't going to like me. I completely resonate with, I'm a huge people pleaser. Still, I have to fight myself and tie my value to how well my business is doing, or how much money I'm making, or the type of car that I have. This is why being LGBTQ is just more expensive in general. We wanted to buy those things and show off those things and live in the city and have that apartment. So this is just very personal to me that I've had to really reflect. And there'll be times that I'll be sitting on the row machine telling myself, I'm valuable as I am, I'm valuable as I am, I'm valuable as I am, to remind myself that I don't need to be a certain person. And also that this goes back to the value conversation that we were having, that I'm worthy of what I charge people. So if I'm going to charge people $20,000 a year, I'm worth that because I'm valuable as I am, not because of anything else. So I think it's a constant reminder. For me, mantras work, but whatever way that it takes for you to remind yourself that you don't need to be a certain person, you don't need to do a certain thing, you are valuable as you are.
So my last question for you here in the last 60 seconds, when things don't go well for you, very often the answer for entrepreneurs is that they have to work more, they have to work harder, they have to just do more stuff. And then they aren't necessarily creating the life, business, or personal that they're trying to create. How do you help people not double down overworking to still sort of maintain that balance and trust that process will work?
I try to help them remember that this is an opportunity. This stumbling block is a stepping stone for you to build the business that you want. And it's an opportunity for you to say, well, this isn't working, so what can I do differently? That build, measure, learn cycle of being able to know that this is a part of the process. And this is the ability for you to build a better business in a way that won't have this problem before.
Yeah,
or won't have this
that's an
problem again.
acronym right there.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
there's an acronym there with build, measure, learn.
Yeah.
As content creators, we need to remember that what we offer cannot be for everyone. It's kind of like massages. Everyone can afford the $1 massage chair at the mall, but if we want a customized massage, you're going to have to pay a lot more for that.
And as we've learned personally, get comfortable with rejection, because very often when you're repelling some prospective clients, you're attracting the ones that you can truly serve. With that, thank you for tuning in. If you have questions or guest suggestions for us, just email yfpodcast@yahooinc.com.
Like what you see, scan the QR code to follow Yahoo Finance podcasts and more videos with expert insights. And until next time, stay fabulous.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.